Our next round of questions will be for individual panelists, and we'll start with our Buddhist friend, Jeff. I don't understand how changing yourself will change other people. Can you explain? In a minute.
I don't think you could change yourself in a minute, but we believe in this term again, human revolution. And so this inner change, we can see in our environment people that react to us in an angry way, in a greedy way. There's positive people and negative people in our environment. They're all a reflection of something in our life. Buddhism teaches our environment is a reflection of ourselves. And so somewhere deep within us, if somebody is treating us a certain way, or someone is reacting a certain way, there's something deeply rooted in our life that's causing that person or to have that person act the same way because we ourselves act that way in some place or another. And so by truly reflecting on what we do as a person through our thoughts, words, and actions, we can definitely, starting with ourselves, have a dramatic impact on the people outside of us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Don't you dare clap.
Thank you. Thank you. Ramadan, Imam, Mujahid, Ramadan. Nobody said this was going to be easy. So there are several questions along this line. Excuse me. Why has Islam not led the way in decrying the terrorism aligned with it and making it difficult for its extremist members to bring their ways to an end?
Let me pose a question. I've often wondered, because we get that as Muslims, we get that quite frequently. I've often wondered why in America we probably had, from the discontinuance of slavery until 1968, there were probably 4,700 lynchings in this country. 78% of them were African American men. And I haven't heard anybody apologize yet. But as a Muslim, I'm constantly asking this question about the terrorists by Americans. And so sometimes we act as though we're not touched by the experiences of our own country or the 11 million Indians, Native Americans we committed genocide on. Haven't heard a lot of apologies about that. So for the question, I want you to think deeply about ourselves as we look in terms of that. Now let me speak as a practicing Muslim in terms of your question, because I would be remiss if I didn't. There is an ongoing effort by those of us who are both indigenous here and around the world to combat and educate even Muslims. And that's the large majority of our responsibility, to educate Muslims as to really what the Quran and what the Sunnah, the life of the Prophet, really gave us. Certainly we find a substantial amount of the Muslim world is illiterate. It's not learned in countries like Afghanistan and many parts of Africa and many parts of South Asia. We have illiterate populations who are led by probably a substantial amount of illiterates, which feeds politics and dogma instead of the principle of what God has given us in the Quran and in the Sunnah. And please look at Islam and the commandments of God and not its adherents. Muhammad Assad, Leopold Weiss, who was an Austrian Jew who converted to Islam, he said he's so glad that he embraced Islam before he met Muslims. Interesting statement, because it's the Muslims that will misguide us from what God is really saying and doing. So it is our role, those of us who are here and in many other places, to work with you in areas and work with all of us in areas of building this type of harmonious environment that will allow for all of us to experience what we experience in America. And quite frankly, America may be the most Islamic country in the world because it does allow us this opportunity to do these type things. In conclusion here, God says to us in the Quran, in Quran 49:13, surely, O human beings, know I created you from one single pair of male and female and made you into nation, tribes, and families so that you may know one another, not that you may despise one another. It's interesting, the word that is used for know is la ta'arafu. Arafu is to know. The 9th day of Hajj is called the day of Arafat, the day of knowing. But to know means to tolerate, to understand, to share, to gain an experience, to be patient with. And all of those things help grow our character as individuals, but it certainly helps a nation harmonize. And that's what has made America great. And if we are to maintain that, and if we are to export that to other parts of the world, then we have to continue in this type of work of educating not only ourselves, but our adherents. And certainly we as Muslims, we take on and we embrace that responsibility, and we invite our brothers and sisters of the Abrahamic faith and many others to also follow us and work with us along those lines.
I know, I feel the clapping. It's really great. Do you feel the clap? It's good. It's great. Dr. Singh, how do you, as a Sikh, deal with your turban and the dagger that Sikhs carry in American airports?
You know, Sikhism does not believe in converting anybody, does not, because we believe that all religions are good. You have your own way, be married, make married, right? So we never felt the need to explain or do anything different. Only after 9/11, it became a little bit of a problem because people started to confuse you for something else. So that's okay. You know, nobody should be, I'm going to tell you something. You know, why should, let me ask you a simple thing, okay? There was a camel and an elephant. So elephant said to the camel, you know, how come, don't you feel embarrassed that you have two breasts on your back? Camel said, now that is funny. Coming from somebody who has a dick attached to his face.
I know. Diana, you're going to edit that one, I guess. Oh, yeah, that's the promo. Yeah, right there you go.
But you know, my thing is that if God wanted everybody to look the same, He would have made everybody same. Okay? If God wanted every rose to be red, He would have made every single rose to be red. If God wanted everybody to be white, everybody would be a white. Okay? I'm just trying to follow what God made me. He gave me hair. I'm trying to keep that. I'm not fighting every day in the morning, shaving, and next day it is back. Okay? So if people say that, why are you wearing a turban? I asked you, okay, have you ever seen Pope without his head covered? All religious Muslims wear a skull cap. All observant Jews wear a yarmulke. All Hindus wear turbans on special occasions. So the question here is, I don't leave it to the priests or the clergy to just do that. In Sikhism, everybody is equal and everybody is same. So it is not the right only of the clergy or the Pope and rest everybody can do whatever they want. Okay? So in my faith, I have no problem wearing a turban. It is a spiritual crown for me. I wear it very proudly. And the other reason is that if anybody ever needs any help, they're in big trouble for anything. As a member of a Sikh faith, it is my obligation and duty to come and help you. Okay? How will you recognize that this guy is a Sikh? Thank you.
But Dr. Singh, the question remains, what do you do in the airport?
I wear a turban. There's no problem with the turban. My small sword, which is a ceremonial sword, which actually means, see, you know, America gave the Second Amendment right. Okay? If you go and read the American Constitution, I can bet you on that it was founded by the Sikhs. Okay? Everybody is equal. America gave rights to blacks much later. America gave rights to women to vote much later. In Sikhism, you can have a female pope. Okay? So coming back, to the airport.
Quickly.
I leave my sword at home, and when I get back, and I wear it again.
Thank you. Very much. Okay. To what extent are the Baha'is still being persecuted in Iran and elsewhere?
It's unfortunate that anybody anywhere in the world should be persecuted for his or her beliefs. And the persecution is an indication of ignorance. It is not an indication of wrongdoing. The Baha'is in Iran particularly have been persecuted for years. It started from the declaration of the Babs, who was the herald of the Baha'i faith in 1844 to his message. Over 20,000 people had to give up their lives for the sake of promoting his cause. That persecution continued on a different levels. Currently, Baha'is are not allowed to go to universities, are not allowed to be at schools, and when they arrange their own educational system, those who organize it are taken to prison and charged with the sort of plotting against the government. This is happening in a number of countries, Iran, Egypt, and quite a number of other countries. However, that persecution does not stop the Baha'is from continuing their services to humanity and also from continuing trying to educate themselves. And they don't hold their persecutors as their enemies. They still work for their goodness and for their progress.
Thank you. Candace. How much of our cultural and international conflict is based on a focus of acquiring material goods and services? Is there a possibility of a different type of wealth? What would it be?
The temple I represent is based on the principles of goddess spirituality, peace, and the gift economy. And the gift economy is a system of gifting or giving to each other rather than charging each other. And it's the way we'd like to see the world go. And actually it's a giant step backwards because that's the way the world used to be. People used to live in small communities and they worked together and they helped each other and they weren't always charging each other for stuff. So yes, I think there is definitely a better way. I don't know what the percentage would be of people being materialistic and creating wars, but I would say it's very high.
Thank you. Rabbi, another, it ain't so easy. If Judaism teaches of peace, and there are several questions related to Israel, and that's what this is. If Judaism teaches of peace, why do you think it is such a struggle to create peace in the Middle East where two religions seem to clash constantly?
This is one of those questions that would be difficult to answer in 5 days, let alone in a minute. Integral to the Jewish religion is a sense of a homeland in Israel. It's part and parcel with the Jewish belief. Throughout our history, including this past century, Jews have been persecuted. So associated with that persecution was the notion that if we had a homeland of our own, we'd have a place to live out our lives as Jews in peace. Of course, since there's been a Jewish homeland since 1948, it's been constant war and conflict. And we could have classes galore on why that might be. But as much as we might want to view it as a religious war, I think in many respects it's a political war. There are centuries in which Jews have lived under Muslim rule in peace. In fact, it was called the Golden Age of Spain. And there has been countries throughout the Middle East where for centuries, such as in Iraq and Egypt, in Syria, where there are century-old Jewish communities. But now we have a political conflict. November 4th, 16 years ago, Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated by a zealous right-wing Orthodox Jew. He gave the ultimate sacrifice for peace. Anwar Sadat gave the ultimate sacrifice for peace. Israel currently enjoys peace treaties with Egypt, with Jordan, with Turkey, and relations with many other Muslim countries. And so the possibility for peace is there. It's going to take courage of great leaders, and some who perhaps are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice to bring two warring peoples together for the sake of their children and their children's children. Because this constant war serves neither Israel, nor the Palestinians, nor Judaism, nor Islam. And I think everyone in their heart of hearts knows that. And until these leaders look at themselves in their mirror and they say, what responsibility do I have for my children and my grandchildren? Until that happens, things won't change.
Okay, thank you. I think the next round of questions will start with Mujahid. In the American courts, is Sharia law dealt with any differently than Jewish law or canon law, which relates to Christian law?
I would say probably not, but largely on the basis of not knowing. I think that Islam being of the Abrahamic faith, the most recent, and then of course established here in the United States, it has a longer history than the past 20 or 30 years, but there has not, other than those things that are inherent within our own structure that we have actually borrowed from Islam, there wouldn't be. But I think as the Muslim population continues to grow here, and we're now having generations that are going to be Muslims, but they won't be born in other countries, they're going to be born here. So as a result of that, I think the application of the potential of Sharia law becoming a part of the overall parcel is going to crop up just like it has in other traditions, whether the Judaic faith or where it's canonized in the Christian faith. I think that's an obvious thing that is to happen. Now, in some of those, it was asked, what are some of the things that we may find a bit challenging in terms of Islamic law or Sharia law? Sharia law is actually derives its origin from the Quran itself and from the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad. And there is some flexibility in the Sharia law. At one time, it was Omar said that you can't kill cows. The cows were going to become extinct. So the Caliph Omar said, we're going to forbid you killing cows for a period of time until the population can come back. So you're flexible there. But I think that there are some things that we may find challenges. It could be punishment. It could be marital status. It could be inheritance. These are things that a better education may allow for us to understand more of it. But of course, there may be issues that we would have from our different cultural perspectives. But largely, as the population, inheritance would be another one. Public property, those type things. And as we find Muslim populations attempting to practice the religion in its form here in the United States, eventually we're going to end up in courts, and the court cases are going to establish new precedents for us. Many times, though, we actually look at current laws. I'm involved with prison ministry, prison chaplaincy. There's an already established code in the criminal justice system for the Jewish population to have halal meat. So by Muslims, we have the same right to, there's kosher meat, I apologize, and kosher, and ours is halal similar. It's the way the animal is sacrificed or the way the animal is killed. So these things, as Muslim population is going to end up in the criminal justice system, we're going to find things like diet, things like laws in terms of divorce. We know Islam allows for polygyny in terms of marriage. But it doesn't say that you have to practice that. Then the Quran tells you, but you have to obey the laws of the land if those laws does not forbid you from following what God has given. So the Quran says, for instance, 4 wives are lawful unto you, but one is best if you would know. Now, all those men who have one wife, you know, right? Well, and it doesn't say you have to do that. So someone will say, well, God says I can, but God doesn't say you have to. American law says you have one wife. So we follow the American law because God says, and obey the laws of the land when they don't forbid you from violating the laws of God.
Thank you. Dr. Singh, why are Sikhs thought of as good warriors?
Go again.
Why are Sikhs considered good warriors? They have a reputation as being good warriors.
Warriors or warriors?
Warriors. Warriors. Like in fighting, as in.
Okay,
as in
I know.
armies.
I just thought that you said warrior, and only not my accent. I thought she's saying VOYEUR. So. I just want to be clear, because the highest number of warriors are actually in Utah. There was a survey done. Okay, warriors.
Warriors.
Warriors, because it's very simple. A Sikh was made to be a saint soldier. Saint, so that you are nice and every single thing, whatever the qualities of the saint are. Soldier at the same time, because so that you can help and protect others. If you are only for yourself, what good are you? If you are not for others, what's your purpose? So as a Sikh, as a saint, we all want to have all those qualities that we identify with saints. And as a saint, we want to be identified so that we can fight for the downtrodden and the meek and people who cannot defend themselves. They are good warriors. They form 15%. They are less than 2% of the Indian army. They make up 15%. Sikhs are less than 2% of the Indian population. They make up 15% of the Indian army. Okay, they are very, very patriotic, very passionate, and they will fight for the thing. They fought for World War I, World War II in their own turbans and all that. Sadly, America doesn't have the fortune at this point to accommodate Sikhs with their turbans and all that. I hope that changes one day, because Sikhs will be so proud to follow their tradition, to serve their country, and still practice their faith.
Thank you. How does the role of the individual in conflict resolution different from the role of the Baha'i institution in the Baha'i faith? Can you stand? Thank you.
The role of the institutions is the guardians of the community. Just to give you a background on Baha'i institutions are elected bodies for every town or every city that has 9 Baha'is or more. And it is a secret, sacred election where no candidates and there is no electioneering. So we pray and we select 9 people who would combine the best qualities for service, like well-trained mind, proven ability, mature experience, and whosoever come with the highest votes, these become the members of that elected body. And their primary responsibility is to take counsel in a consultative process where no polarization or no, again, electioneering or promoting a certain ideas. The purpose of it is finding the truth of the matter that they are discussing. So every aspect of it, every matter that's introduced, all of us will have the right to see it from our own viewpoint, and in a consultative process end up to be able to make a decision based on that. That's for the institution. The individual has his own process of reconciling conflict. One of it is praying about his the issue that he is facing, and prayer is asking the aid of God to assist him in making the proper decision. Another aspect of it is acquainting himself with the Baha'i teachings, where he would be able to see the positive in that situation, whether if he has an opponent or it is a self-inflicted condition. So that's basically, he has these elements in his hand, and he has also the element of referring to the institution, his problem, and asking them for counsel.
Thank you. Candace, Perhaps you may be elaborating on this, but what is the basis for the prejudice about the goddess-based tradition?
I think it's probably twofold. I think a lot of people still consider paganism Satanism, which it is not. There is no Satan in paganism. And also because a lot of people tend to demonize feminists, and goddess women are, and actually it's not just goddess women, there's men also who are devotees to the goddess, and they tend to be feminists. They believe in equality, and a lot of people misinterpret that. And I think that's the two biggest issues.
Thank you. Rabbi, since conflict has scattered the Jewish people many times, is there a particular battle where the Jewish religion was preserved by the hand of God? And if that is so, can you explain how?
In a world of 7 billion people, there's only 14 million Jews. 7 billion people, 14 million Jews. Every war is a battle for survival. Every one. We're a small people. Where the religion could have died out, but it didn't, was actually the destruction of the Second Temple in the year 70 by the Romans. At that time period, all of Jewish tradition and ritual and religious life revolved around the temple in Jerusalem, and the last remnant of that is called the Kotel, or the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, a holy shrine to this very day. And when that temple was destroyed, the religion could have been destroyed with it, and that was the time that the Jews were scattered into the diaspora. The religion was then changed. The rabbis declared that rather than eating animal sacrifices, which was taking place at the temple, which you read about in the Bible, God needed the sacrifice of our hearts. And Judaism was changed from a religion that sacrificed animals to prayer. And then from a priesthood, we developed a rabbinate, although there was some historical overlap. So the priesthood dissolved, almost didn't dissolve, it became less important. And the rabbinate education, maintaining ritual and prayer, came to the forefront. And that's what sustained the Jewish people. From that developed the institution of the synagogue or the temple in different communities as places of worship and of social gathering and of education. And that's what sustained the Jewish people for 2,000 years.
Thank you very much. And Jeff, we chanted the chant tonight that you, as SGI Buddhist, chant. But how does that chant differ from another meditation, or why does this chant create the results differently than perhaps another mantra might?
We chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which means literally devotion to the law, the mystic law of the universe, of cause and effect through sound. We live our life through cause and effect, and it's very strict, again, like I mentioned. When we chant, we're chanting to the Gohonzon, our object of devotion, which does not have any power other than just our way to focus. But when we chant, we're able to tap. There's a law of the universe, the mystic law of the universe. Just like gravity, you drop something, it's going to fall. We believe in this, that everybody is connected through the universe. We all live by birth, sickness, aging, and death. We all have the same reality. And when we chant, though, this mystic law that we're tapping into, we all have a treasure, treasures of the heart. We're tapping into that by chanting those words. Nichiren Daishonin realized that Shakyamuni, our original Buddha, titled the final chapter of his Buddhist teachings, the Lotus Sutra, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. That encompasses all the teachings of Buddhism. And so when we chant, we tap into that universal law of cause and effect to bring about the most highest potential within our lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Of one more question that I'm going to ask our panelists to address very quickly, maybe a 30-second answer. And they can either give this answer to this question or make a closing comment, and then we'll be done for the evening. We'll start with Dr. Singh. You can either make a closing comment in 30 seconds or you can address this particular question.
I'll just make a comment that,
Okay.
because, if you give me a question, who knows how long I will go. So,
So true, so true. Okay.
I don't get any chance to talk at home, so this is... And I'm an Alzheimer's doctor. My patients don't talk to me, so this is the only place I talk.
And so?
Okay. The closing comment is that, people think that peace cannot be achieved. I believe peace can be achieved. Okay? If we can achieve it if we all respect everybody else's religion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hosny, would you like to hear the question, or do you just want to?
I can hear it, I might.
Okay, because I don't know how things are at home at your house. So. Okay. In the cases of genocide or mass killing of one tribe against another, in the reconciliation process, the chance to tell one's story about one's loss has been effective in the process of building peace. Why do you think that would be so?
I'll follow Dr. Singh's...
Okay. 30 seconds.
Well, the process of achieving peace, Baha'u'llah said it is much closer than it has ever been before. And it is dependent on us. So what peace means for each one of us today, what peace means for a mother who's raising up her children, is to teach them the concepts of peace, how to be good citizens. For a teacher is to how to create that peaceful environment in his class or her class within the children. For a worker is to provide that environment of acceptance and tolerance within his working place. And of course for politician it means they are going to be retired soon, because if world peace comes, then they have really no much discussion to do. I would like to just remind what Baha'u'llah said about all of us as workers for peace. He said, "Ye are the stars of the heaven of understanding, the breeze that stirreth at the break of day, the soft flowing waters upon which must depend the very life of all men, the letters inscribed upon his sacred scroll."
Thank you. Candace.
I believe the question was referring to events in South Africa.
Yes.
And I believe that it was helpful for both sides because it gave the people who lost loved ones a chance to tell the story of those people, how much they were loved and about their lives and who they were. And it gave the person who had done the violence a chance to see these persons that were killed as people and know something about them so that they could each touch their humanity and changing it from being it us and them into it all being us.
Thank you. Rabbi.
I want to share with you a prayer by Rabbi Jack Reamer. We cannot merely pray to you, O God, to end war, for we know that you have made the world in a way that mankind must find its own path to peace within himself. We cannot merely pray to you, O God, to end starvation, for you have already given us the resources with which to feed the entire world, if we would only use them wisely. We cannot merely pray to you, O God, to root out prejudice, for you have already given us eyes with which to see the good in all people, if we would only use them rightly. We cannot merely pray to you, O God, to end despair, for you have already given us the power to clear away slums and to give hope, if we would only use our power wisely. We cannot merely pray to you, O God, to end disease, for you have already given us great minds with which to search out cures and healing, if we would only use them constructively and with our neighbors. Therefore, we pray to you instead, O God, for strength, determination, and willpower, to do instead of just pray, to become instead of merely to wish. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to end by saying our founder of this practice, Nichiren Daishonin, says, if you want to understand the causes that were made in the past, look at how they are manifested today. And if you want to understand the future, look at the causes that are being made in the present. And so I really want to challenge everyone here, if we can, the youth of today are becoming more desensitized through many ways of media, etc., and not understanding the value of a single individual in life. And so I just want to end that I appreciate this opportunity to be up here, and maybe we can have a youth dialogue, or having youth represent each religion. So thank you.
Thank you. You have a second. You have a chance in just a second after Mujahid has the last word.
In reference to the question that Aleda posed to us, reconciliation, and sharing our experiences and sharing the effects of those experiences, trauma, it has a hugely impactful effect, not only those who are traumatized, but without a healing, then the trauma will be inadvertently passed off to their children. I'll borrow from two studies, one from the Jewish community of the Holocaust survivors and how it affected 2 generations after the Holocaust, which lasted approximately for 12 years. We saw the effects of the Holocaust for 2 generations. Slavery in America lasted for almost 300 years, and we're still seeing the effects of slavery because we have not came to a reconciliation of the damaging effects of slavery on populations, not only the ones who were victimized, but on the ones who also were on the other end of the equation. And that is yet to be accomplished because we have not came to fully understand the impact of the trauma. And on both sides of the equation, both populations hand this concept off to their children, because children in their formative years will download not only the physical behavior, but the psychological and emotional tendencies of their parents. And so if the parents are not aware of it, then we teach what we are taught. And reconciliation gives us a way of clearing up the dynamics of the trauma, something that probably South Africa has superseded America in. But let me say nonetheless, even without that, America's become a great nation. I think in terms of those who I'm a descendant of those slaves, how great could America have been, or how great will America be when we come to a full reconciliation, not only of that population, but the reconciliation of our treatment of women, our reconciliation of our treatment of Native American populations, our reconciliation of many, many others who've been exploited and demonized. America has this beauty and the beast personality. Sometimes it's beauty at home and it's beast outside. So reconciling and coming to sharing our pains and our suffering and our experiences that allow for us to heal without the antagonism or drama or without emotionalism, not from the reptilian brain, but from the thinking human brain, which God really gave us, and we can pattern ourselves like God in this capacity. And I thank all of you. Peace be unto you. Assalamu alaikum.
Now,